Hello and welcome everybody and anybody who is watching. Thank you so much for coming to the Scientific Origins according to Austin Sims channel. Today, the scientific origins are also according to Damien Marie at Hope, our guest. So let me send it over to you, Damien. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit what's going on.
All right. Hi, I'm Damien Marie at Hope, and you can go find my channel at my page. I have a web page at my name, Damien Marie at Hope. And I'm an autodidact polymath, meaning that I'm self-taught and I'm quite proficient in several different types of thinking, from philosophy to anthropology to archaeology information to science information to DNA information. Now, and languages also. And then also cultures of the world and all kinds of stuff like this. Basically, my knowledge is, I would say, is I'm a prehistorian, and I'm most knowledgeable from 1 million years ago until about 4,000 years ago. Basically, my goal was to study everything before writing.
And that includes pretty much all of human history up to about like 8,000 years ago, right? That's sometime around when writing was invented, I think.
No, right. Well, writing spread at different things. It's the oldest writing is probably somewhere after 4,000, 3,000 something, or started in like symbols and little clay tablets or clay tokens, they call them,
right?
Well, no, before that. That's
before cuneiform, right?
Oh yeah, that's not the first. Well, and there's also symbols in a sense, but the first really what we're writing in a sense where cuneiform relates to is actually like almost like tax collecting or
somebody complaining about getting the wrong grade of copper or the wrong number of goats in some transaction.
Right. Well, and even that kind of relates to stamp seals. Stamp seals, I think, are like 8,000 or something, or 7,000, something like that. But they would put on grain and stuff. They would put a stamp like this is mine, or this is for this ruler or whatever. And so you have to break it to open it up the in a sense the thing.
Right.
And so then eventually those tokens become smaller and more transferable, probably. And then from there, then kind of at first it's symbolic writing in a sense, or symbolic figures, kind of like what Egypt sort of had at the beginning, that kind. And then that becomes cuneiform in a sense in Mesopotamia, but not Egypt. Egypt splits into two different things, types of language. But anyway, but yes, different, like that didn't relate to when Europe got writing. Europe got writing much later. And so and then China also probably its writing or first symbols could be like almost 8,000, 9,000 years old. And they don't really relate to the symbols exactly that in a sense that started in the Middle East. Although the people were moving around, so it is a little more connected than people think, but certainly not like ancient aliens or lost civilization. It's bullcrap.
You're telling me that people didn't have a tower that they built to the heavens that made God mad, and he scattered them all and confused their languages, and that's how we get languages? I'm pretty sure I read a book that disagrees, Damien. No, I'm kidding, of course.
No, but anyways, understanding that, really going back to what we're talking about here, is everything evolved. Religion evolved, mythology evolved, and all these ideas, and even, DNA, which is, we're going to talk about haplogroups, they evolved. They started a more simple thing, and then they kept evolving and breaking off. That doesn't mean the other stuff always died off. It just means new things were coming. But in general, that relates to, in a sense, evolution, just as a general, understanding, I feel. Is not just limited to, like how the earth or how humans, came about from, or how animals came about, but all ideas really, and all these different things are evolving. I mean, it's just literally everything. Like I said, you can look at mythology and see it like branch of a tree too, just like you can do with, animals. Languages also do this, and
Yeah.
language families do this. And then they break down. And words, you can do it with words, and look at where all the different things the words evolve into. So it's evolution is so true on so many levels. It is literally ridiculous to deny it.
I said the same thing in my debate with Kent Hovind, where he talks about all the different kinds of evolution there are. There's chemical evolution, there's cosmic evolution, and all of these things are evolution. And it's kind of a little bit of a red herring, and it's a little bit of an equivocation, because when it comes to evolution, really the only things that are actually evolution are like the last two things on the list: microevolution and macroevolution. And that's biological evolution. But it is kind of true in the sense that the universe itself is evolving, that it evolved from a much hotter, much denser, much more constrained state to an expanding, cooling, less dense state that it's in now, where entropy is possible. And once entropy became possible, it became almost certain that living things would eventually spring up from all of the elements and combinations. I hold that living things are just a system through which entropy flows. But yeah, no, you are right in that there are many kinds of evolution. It isn't just humans and living organisms that evolve. Language evolves, society evolves, culture evolves, and in a broader sense, the universe itself evolves. Volcanoes evolve, mountains evolve, the oceans have evolved,
right. Exactly.
Beaches, lakes, rivers, the atmosphere. There's been meteorological evolution. There is a lot of evolution going on.
My point I was trying to make was that it is a natural state you can just see is part of reality itself. It's not. So also that would be ridiculous for someone to say, I'm a creationist, but everything evolved. Like that literally helps me understand that, evolution, it's just a natural thing in reality, that this is an occurrence. To think that somehow magic happened here, though. What? But anyway, so in our sense, what we're talking about is that also the denial of evolution is a form of white supremacy. Or racism or bigotry. And one of the things why, in the sense, it becomes that, for the creationists that focus on theism, it's about, some magic something. But for a lot of racists, the reason they don't like it is because they don't want to be connected to black ancestors.
Right.
And so you can go down.
It's broader than that too. They don't want to be animals.
Well, that's true. Yes,
humans are something other than animals.
Right. So that's fine. This is just saying where that article came from.
Yeah.
And then this right here is a picture of basal Eurasians, meaning that, in a sense, like one of the origins of a lot of Eurasians, and you see it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, once again, that's not talking in haplogroups, though. That's like giving a loose thing, which I don't really like and don't really use, because it's too easy for then someone to make up some other nonsense.
Yeah.
So it's still, but this is how a lot of times people will talk. They talk in these big, things, like it goes to Western hunter-gatherers or to, ancient North Eurasians, or, they start using all these terms that, if you don't understand what DNA is involved and stuff, it's easier to be confused.
Yeah,
or to be misled, I should say.
They're oversimplifying a little bit.
Right, which I know it's hard. Everybody shouldn't have to become a scientist to grasp this. But because there's so much nonsense, and it's not like everyone's speaking truth, I feel like you kind of do need to understand some of this, because then what they say is just lies. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
So this is just to show you that it's all moving around, right? It's not like it's just – so everyone that thinks they're all over the place, well, there is an origin.
And you know what? This is tough for me because I mix up West and East all the time. And so I constantly am having to remind myself as we're learning about this,
Right.
West is this way and East is that way. And so that can be just human fallibility is part of it too.
Yeah. But I was just saying, you can see how people think they're all separate.
Yeah.
And you notice right here, that doesn't look real true, even just in the simplified version.
Yeah.
And then also you see that people go one way and then they go back another way. And when they go, so it's just not.
And I can see how separating all these haplogroups into West and East and North Eurasian and then just giving them a color is inferior to actually naming the haplogroups and telling us what's going on in that way.
I totally agree. And then this right here, you didn't read the writing.
Yeah, the red circle is called basal Eurasians, which originate from the southern Middle East, specifically from prehistoric Arabia or North Africa, and are said to have contributed ancestry to various West Eurasian, South Asian, and Central Asian, as well as African groups.
Right. So the reason I bring this up about basal Eurasian is because the racists like to say that somehow, right. And because some people try to, like the racists try to act like somehow, people from Europe are not the same as other Asians, or it's just wrong. And so this has just helped to show that actually everyone's mixing around. So you can go down the next thing. So the next picture is my art showing pretty much this kind of the same thing, but I am showing you which haplogroups everything is.
Yeah.
And so then you see that it's a little bit different in a sense, or you can understand it more. And also you can understand, here's something also. This yellow line is older. That went in first, maybe almost 50,000. And it's C1.
Yeah.
Maybe C1. And then the next one up there is also the black line up on top. See where it says 34,000?
Yeah.
That's also C1. Do you see how that can make it confusing too?
Yeah,
and they're definitely different, and different times, different paths, and even though related very closely, it's still different DNA. The reason it's close is it comes from the same source.
Yeah,
basically a form of the basal Eurasian.
Well, that is the mechanism that we've discovered for similar DNA is ancestry. The closer. The two closest organisms will be a parent and its offspring, and then next it's siblings, and so on and so forth. And then outside of your family, it holds true as well. This is why we think humans and apes are so closely related. Well, one of the reasons, in addition to all of the biogeographical data and the anatomical data that you can see just by making a heuristic analysis of morphology. But yeah, no, the DNA too.
And this is something to understand. A lot of times when they're talking about this show particularly is about the Cromagnon, but that's because Robert Sepher tries to say Europeans are descended from Cro-Magnons and they've been there 50,000 years. Well, people have been in Europe 50,000 years. Cro-Magnons, that's a even larger, stupider label.
Yeah.
That it isn't very scientifically useful because it's about 4 cultures at different times, so it really is bad. But that would have to involve cDNA, but there's no cDNA in Europe today. The oldest Europe is the red line, which is I.
Okay.
But that came in after the red. See where it says here, I red is 33 to 24. Right. So the first yellow is 50. The black line is at least hits Europe at least 31. Okay. So when both those are C, but all of them got wiped out or taken over or died out or whatever you want. I don't know exactly because I'm going to need to get into that. But my point is the only one that's old that's there today is I. And I comes from the Middle East and came from C. So once again,
it all goes back to C,
right? So it's not Atlantis because that's because he did show a thing of a 24,000-year-old DNA. And he's like, oh, see, look, this is a Cro-Magnon. And I'm like, yeah, that's I. And I is only 24,000 years old, the one
Right.
you're showing. He's like, oh, yeah, well, that came from the Cro-Magnons and Atlantis. I'm like,
no.
no. And that was
Cro-Magnons
different
in
than
the
the other
Middle
ones.
East, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not different. It came from Africa, yet same thing. They just
Yeah.
branched off at a different time, whatever, a different, So anyway, you can go to the next one. I'm just trying to show you, and then go ahead and read it.
This understanding helps prove with DNA that all humans came from Africa, and this includes all Europeans. As I know you already know, but it breaks it down clearer at the origin in yet another way. Not that racists will accept facts any more than creationists.
Right. And so then this is cDNA, because we were talking, remember, about C1.
Yeah.
And this kind of shows C1 and C2, but C1 actually should branch another way, but then this maps from Wikipedia. I'm just trying to show you basic. It's a little bit right, a little bit wrong, but it's still very close to what the other thing I already showed you.
Yeah.
It's older also, an older map, but it still shows C went all over the place. So C went to the Americas and C went to Europe. So even if he was right that C was still in Europe, which it really isn't, unless they're a new migration, that it would still be that they are related to people in the Americas. They're related to people in Australia. It was still in Africa. It's still
Asia. Yeah.
Still Asia. It's still the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the yellow line taking us over the Bering Strait to where we are too. That's nice.
Right.
To get us folded in there.
Right. And see, and that happened probably about 9,000 to 6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So all this isn't the same time. So what does it say?
At the end of the day, we are all Homo sapiens and just want to live our life. Yes.
Right. Exactly. I'm totally for that. I'm saying we're all the same. It's a fallacy to think otherwise. This right here shows how C and F, and F is important because F ends up with GK or G. I think it's GKHJI, I think, or something. Anyways, but that's where I comes from, or later, because it's not. Okay. I is not at this time, and these are two different times. I put a little tiny map to blow up. The older time at 65, that's when F started, but after that time, I don't know exactly, but that's when F diverges into all these other.
We talked about C and J a lot. Right. I don't know if we've talked about F so much, but
right. Well, it's just showing you that I just showed the I coming from and J coming from C directly, just to make it simple on that map, just so you understand, because it is their parent in a sense.
And F also.
It's actually a little more complicated. F, and then it goes to another big one, right? And then it splits from there into two different ones, and then it splits again. I didn't want to explain it, It's already complicated. Yeah. I'm just showing you that even if you break it down even more complicated, it's still, we all come from Africa. We all relate to, the sea. And anyway, so this right here just shows more of a breakdown with the lineages, and still shows we're all connected.
Yeah.
See, sub-Saharan Africans, and then you have Tiananmen Man is in China, and then the other one is in Europe. Or actually Russia, and then Basal Eurasian. Remember, that was the one in the Middle East. It just shows, though, to think that we're not connected. It's just
it's completely wrong. There's the thing in biology of the groupers versus the segmenters. The people who say organisms should be grouped together versus people who say no, these are separate. And the reason that is a thing is because life is a blended continuum. It breaks down at the edges, and there's all these exceptions and all this variation, and that is part of the raw material that drives evolution. And so, like, even something like this, even a visualization like this is a little bit wrong. We're just using it as a map to understand the data. Like, these lines are kind of illusory between archaic humans and, I assume all of these listed in this part here are considered Homo sapiens, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. So these guys would all be Homo sapiens, but they're really not that different from a Homo denisovans over here, or Homo neanderthalensis over here, or
I
even
agree.
really a Homo ergaster, which is, way further back and way more ape-like, but still doing human-like things too, like burying their dead and painting and making sculptures and doing art. Yeah. Good to see you too, Maya. Thank you for stopping by. And
Yeah, then you
yes,
go down a little
it's
bit more
always
and
a
you can see.
pleasure to stream with Damien. He's brilliant.
Thank you. And then if you go to C right here, this plot is kind of what you said. Instead of lines, it just shows how close things are related.
Yes.
And so it's a little bit different. But once again, you see everything is really kind of close.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
And
I
so
like this one.
but like you said, all these are visual representations to try to make it easier to understand hard data.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
So you can keep going to the next thing, or the writing. Yeah, the writing.
Basal Eurasians are an ancient, deeply diverged population that split from other non-African humans early on, acting as a key ancestral component for modern Europeans, contributing to the gene pool of early farmers and subsequently mixing into later European groups. Though they are a less prominent signal than West European hunter-gatherers, Y DNA haplogroups. We talked about Y a bit too.
Right. Y is
over,
male, and then
yeah,
there's of course females also, but I just focus on the male just because it's less confusing to keep throwing in all different ones. But yes,
yeah.
it actually these people would probably have been U and maybe N, but
Mhm.
or R. I mean, but female. But I think it's U mainly. But anyways, but it just shows there's the I. It's
Yeah.
I is older, and then there's younger R1B.
Yeah.
R1B enters into the Balkans probably sometime about 15 to 14,000 years ago, where I is like 33 to 24. I mean, it's into Europe. It's
The
old.
oldest. Yeah.
But once again,
We could
they
find
just talk
something
like
older. Yeah.
well, just to help you understand, they're leaving in the Middle East at different times.
Yeah.
So that's why when you say Western European hunter-gatherers, it makes it sound like they were already there.
Yeah.
No. And that they all got there at the same time. No.
Yeah. And as the migration is happening, this is what we call radiation in biology. And the radiation into new environments also causes adaptations. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
we
definitely.
put it together into the
Right.
term adaptive radiation. And that's
Right.
what we've got. We've got a bunch of varieties of humans that have resulted from this adaptive radiation from a common ancestor population that radiated out of Africa. And
That's
they
correct.
radiated back into Africa, and then they
And just so people
radiated
know,
back out of Africa again, and they radiated into Asia and radiated this way and that way and over the Bering Strait. Yeah.
they
And it
did.
makes sense. And it doesn't, and I don't really see, there's no need to shove Atlantis into it, but they have a need to do it to justify racism.
Correct. And also they try to say Cro-Magnons. So Western hunter-gatherers are not Cro-Magnons. So Cro-Magnons would be before what this right here we're reading, the Western hunter-gatherers. But they try to say that I is part of Cro-Magnon. So, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But the whole point that they're trying to do different things. So, but you could say the Western European hunter-gatherers, some people try to say they're white. Neither I or R1B, especially R1B at this time, was white. R1B doesn't become white until it probably, I don't know, I would say 13,000 to 9,000, it becomes white. It doesn't really move into Europe, though, until about 5,000 to 6,000, the white. So, and then it doesn't even, everybody doesn't become white in Europe until about 3,000. So when they say like, oh, well, the one at 33 or 24 was white, the answer is fuck no.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So you can keep reading.
The we left off at ancient North Eurasians and many modern Europeans, I think.
Right. And
While
those are the people
basal,
that brought white.
yeah, while basal Eurasian ancestry is significant in Middle Easterners, it's a foundational layer in Europeans, representing the earliest branch of non-African ancestry that mixed with later migrants, shaping the genetic landscape of the continent alongside hunter-gatherer and farmer lineages. Basal Eurasian is a deep, diverging, ancient non-African language, not a specific haplogroup, but a population that split from other Eurasians before 50,000 years ago, characterized by low Neanderthal admixture originating in the Middle East, North Africa, and contributing to West Eurasian, South Asian, and African populations. While not a CF haplogroup, it's related to the ancient branches like C and F haplogroups that emerged from the broader haplogroup CT lineage after the main out of Africa migration, but basal Eurasians diverged before these splits, representing a very early non-African population, which is kind of just what you've been explaining, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah,
people understand CF is basically from Africa. CT leaves Africa. Like that's the first out of Africa
yeah,
males. So that's basically CT. Everybody comes in out of Africa is relating in a sense to CT, even though they come from CF, which kind of stayed probably in Africa.
yeah,
But that's their parent in a sense, their parent from Africa. Anyways, I'm just trying to show that all of this is connected, and we broke it down more.
yeah,
And to think that there's an Atlantis, or that you can somehow fit in white people or different, it's ludicrous.
yeah. An estimation for Holocene era Near Easterners, e.g., Mesolithic Caucasus hunter gatherers, Mesolithic and Neolithic Iranians, and Natufians, suggests that
And by
they
the way,
formed.
Natufians are from Israel.
Ah, okay, I didn't know that.
Maybe a little bit of Syria, Jordan, but basically the
That
hub is.
makes sense. Yeah. Suggests that they formed from a combination of basal Eurasian ancestry and Western hunter-gatherer related and or ancient North Eurasians related ancestries, respectively. The Mesolithic and Neolithic Iranian lineage is inferred to derive between 38 to 48% ancestry from basal Eurasians, respectively, with the remainder ancestry being made up by ancient North Eurasian or Eastern hunter-gatherer like ancestry, while Natufians derived a mean average of 50% basal and 50% unknown hunter-gatherer ancestry, being closer to Western hunter-gatherers. Okay, so
By the way, when they say unknown,
I'm putting out. Yeah, I was just about to put on my conspiracy theorist hat.
no,
Something unknown. That's Atlantis.
I do know what it is. That
Right.
50%. So put it this way: 50% is kind of E. Okay.
Okay.
For the Tufian Israel, I'm talking about.
Right.
50% is E. 50% is a very arcane R1B that showed up in Israel 22,000 years ago. So that's where the unknown, and where their unknown is, they actually came from pre-ancient North Eurasian DNA.
Right.
So before the ancient North Eurasians became a culture, whether people think of it, which is 24,000 years ago, right before that, those people went from there, Siberia, Lake Baikal, and shot all the way down through Iran and stuff into Turkey and into Israel, in a sense, the whole area right there, the whole, pretty much the Fertile Crescent, you could say.
Yeah.
They almost dominated the Fertile Crescent. It took over 50% of all that area, or all the DNA, at least. You know, they spread their DNA. So that's where it is unknown. I do know what it is.
I love how this theory, it takes such massive observations, massive models that are so central to human existence, and gives you a map for them, gives you an understanding for them. And I can see why groups of science deniers and racists and creationists and people like that fight those things. because gaps are good for them. Things that
Oh
we
yeah.
don't understand are good for them. It's places for them to insert their own conspiracy theories or their own unseen agents or deities.
Right.
And so one of our approach's greatest strengths also becomes a weakness, in that we don't abhor a vacuum. We don't fill a vacuum with something. We have confidence levels. We have
Right.
a certain level of justified belief in something, instead of saying this is true and this is false. And I think that idea is anathema to a conspiracy theorist. And that's what part of the appeal of the conspiracy theorist mindset is, that it says, no, plug something in there. Come up with something. If you can't come up with something, make some wild accusations, and
Oh yes.
it's a very bombastic method. It's very attention grabbing, and I think it gets people activated. And so it has strengths, but it also has major weaknesses, in that it'll probably cost you jobs, opportunities, family, friends. It definitely lowers your ability to have an accurate map that matches the terrain. Like, Damien, I can see you've put a ton of effort into these maps and making sure they match the terrain as much as possible.
Oh
And
yes.
that is the mindset we're basically trying to teach people to get people to say, take your map and subject it to absurd levels of refinement. And yeah.
Yeah, well, as you know too, I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
I didn't desire to understand DNA at this level. It really is. I had to fight back against pseudoscience that
Yeah.
I knew had to be wrong. And then they're like, "Well, how do you know?" Well, I had to go find out and try to
Yeah.
look, and then I had to learn shit tons of stuff
So
just
a
to
lot
be
of people have mirrored that experience. Like Tony Reed says, creationism accidentally taught him real science, because he would go and look things up. He would be like,
right.
I'm sure you're very smart, but that sounds wrong. And then he would go look things up, and he would realize. And the same thing very much happened to me. And it seems like you've had a very similar experience. And what's great is that a lot of us have covered different areas with this
Yeah.
experience. Like, I've researched the crap out of evolution. You've researched the crap out of this, and being able to consult each other and add our knowledge together is one of our strongest tools.
Oh, I always say we rise by helping each other.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah, I can't do it all. I've done a lot, like you said, but other people have done stuff that I haven't even addressed,
Yeah.
or I don't usually address, because I'm focusing really on trying to track what are humans doing and what is the behaviors and what did what when where how did they move, how did they migrate, what happened when they went there. That's been my focus. But
Yeah,
but
you're
yeah, I
covering
mean,
that, and then Dibble and a few others are like really covering the archaeology
right,
and paleontology of things. And yeah, it's a collection of diverse approaches. A kaleidoscopic degree of approaches
right.
is so powerful.
Right. And so, speaking of Robert Sepher, the opposite of us,
Yeah,
the ones intentionally promoting bullshit and
right.
racism. I mean, everyone goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, he's not really a racist." I'm like, "Oh my god, if you listen
Oh
to his
man.
stuff, get real."
Having you tagged me in one of his posts on Facebook. I didn't even realize the guy was on Facebook. I thought, a guy this toxic, no way he puts himself into this close of an approximate. Like, no, he is on Facebook being
Yeah.
exactly as toxic as
Yes.
he is in all of his videos and everything else. And because most people don't know about him, you talk about Atlantis to somebody, they're like, okay, thanks, buddy, and immediately tuning you out.
Right,
But
but
he is on Facebook
he
running
doesn't
that shit.
start with Atlantis. He likes
Yes.
to say, "Oh well, uh, we need to understand that the out of Africa theory is debunked, and I've
Yeah.
been saying this for years, and thus What? The Atlantis theory is somehow true?
Yeah. He starts with the conspiracy theories, and he knows how to appeal to people's egocentric views, how to give people a stream of nonsense that makes them feel like education isn't something they missed out on. It's
Yeah, right.
brainwashing that they cleverly avoided.
Right.
You
And
know?
so the reason why we're addressing Cro-Magnons is I had an argument with him, not the one you saw, but like a month or so before. He posted this bullshit that Cro-Magnons were white. And I'm like, okay, I got to say something because he's
Yeah.
fucking bullshit. And he's like, oh, well, 300,000 years ago, there was white skin or said something like this. And I was like, not with humans. He's, oh, well, even apes or whatever can have variations of skin tone. I'm
Right.
like,
Yes.
all that means nothing. They have tails.
If you shave an ape, their skin is light underneath there. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my, that's not how this shit works.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to really address in a hard way what the fuck he's talking about, why he's totally wrong. So that's what all this red is in a sense is explaining the scientific understanding of Cro-Magnon skin tones.
Okay. The belief that early Cro-Magnon humans had light skin is a misconception. The consensus among scientists, supported by genetic evidence, is that the first modern humans in Europe were dark-skinned. While they had some features similar to modern Europeans and had larger brains than Neanderthals, their skin was probably darker than most modern Europeans. Genetic studies confirmed the ancestral Homo sapiens populations in Europe, including early Cro-Magnons, had darker skin than many modern Europeans. Post-Cro-Magnon whiteness largely was related to genes from ancient North Eurasians, which were brought to Europe through migrations that gave lighter skin and hair traits. These traits were primarily carried by Eastern hunter-gatherers with ancient North Eurasian ancestry and later spread more widely with the Yamnaya culture, also with ancient North Eurasian ancestry and Indo-European migrations. Ancient North Eurasian ancestry, which included genes for lighter skin and hair, was present in populations from Siberia and spread to other groups.
Right. So when he talks about them already, because he tries to act like somehow Europeans always had, which is what he would say, I always had white skin. No, they did not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's like, as far as I understand it, white is like you can't really define it. It's not.
Well, I would say that that's not right. There's actually a few gene alleles or whatever they call them, that relate to, like, there's
what
two
we call white is something different than.
We're going to get to that in a second. We're not there yet. This is just explaining what the overall view, right? The overall view that white skin was not present genetically in Europe. So when he says it is, he's wrong.
Yeah, the darker pigmentation, genetic analysis of ancient European hunter-gatherers, including individuals from the period associated with Cro-Magnons, European early modern humans, roughly 45,000 to 10,000 years ago, suggest they had significantly darker skin than most modern Europeans. Forensic reconstructions based on DNA data depict them with skin color similar to modern North Africans or even darker.
Right.
Timeline of light skin. The specific genes for the very pale skin found in many modern European populations are thought to have spread through the continent much more recently, primarily within the last 8,000 years through migrations and natural selection. This occurred long after the Cro-Magnon era. Can I ask a quick question about this part, the darker pigmentation part? So I do know that some fossils, like some fossil organisms, they do leave behind clues to their pigmentation and their color. Like, sometimes fossils are darker, or they have some skin left over, or we can do chemistry on the skin to see, that it has pigment in it. And so is that what we're basing this information on?
No, they're talking about genetics.
The DNA.
Like I said, we're going to get to it in a second. Okay. We've talked about it before. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's like SPK something, something, something.
Right.
And then another SP something. And then
there's a specific allele.
There's a specific ones
related to melanin production.
That actually correct. I think it's I think it stops melanin or something,
or
and
pigments.
then
Yeah.
or shuts it off or something.
Yeah.
Then there's also 3 different ones in Asia,
Hmm.
and I think there's 2 different ones in the Americas. But so that's how we know what happened in a sense. And then go ahead and read light skin
Light
genes.
skin genes did not get to the Baltic unit 13,000 years ago, and Cro-Magnon European early modern humans actually got to France around 50,000 years ago and did not have light skin. Moreover, Cro-Magnons generally thought of as 40,000 to 10,000 years ago, or more rightly called early modern humans in Europe, are had darker skin tones similar to the dark to black skin of early humans who migrated from Africa.
Right. And this next top part of this picture is showing the yellow is white skin, leaving, and also hair relates to hair being
Yeah.
lighter.
Yeah.
So it basically goes there. You see the HG, that's Eastern hunter gatherers, that then spread it to Europe. But this is not showing them do that yet because this is the older.
Oh,
they
okay.
didn't do it until later. But so once again about guessing, and we know that Eastern hunter-gatherers did go to Ukraine, and those little purple things is Ukraine DNA doing that, which would be the Yamnaya.
Okay.
But I did it purple so you understand it's a later thing.
Right.
So, and also the light skin, where ancient North Eurasians again by Lake
Yeah.
Baikal, and then there's a light purple, and it says N1C.
Mhm.
That is an Asian version. That's not a European version, but it did go to Europe.
And one of the things I love about your blog, your site that you have, is you have not only these maps, you have all these pictures of all the different cultures that the maps and lines and
Right.
letter names represent, and I love it. It's like looking at our giant human family tree, like combing through an album of all of our different cousins and aunts and uncles, and it's beautiful. And it's so sad to me that the people who are denying this worldview to serve their own really grandiose and this self-aggrandizing worldview, they're missing out on the beauty of our human family.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
your family is so much bigger than you realize, and I think the reason why is because it makes it easier to be cruel to them. It's easier to
absolutely.
be cruel to somebody you don't know than your own sister or your own father or your own daughter or brother. At least I would hope it is, if you're not like
Well, this also
something.
helps understand why when people say race isn't exactly a real thing,
Yeah.
this helps you understand that.
Yeah.
Really, or even white. You see there are all these different, and right down on the edge at the bottom, the little kind of pink or whatever
Yeah.
in the left-hand side,
Yeah.
that's the farmers who did get stuff from this also. They got their white skin from their versions, but it's a little bit different. That spread about 9,000 to 7,000 or so, 8,000 or whatever years ago into Europe. But as you see, it doesn't go all the way to France, right? You know, all this stuff is going in different places, but it's starting all, you know, in a sense, in Eastern Europe, not Western Europe. And so this claims that Western Europe was always white, literally no. In fact, it was some of the last to be white is a better way to say it, not the first. So go down to the next part of the picture.
And before we do, real quick, I just want to say, like a broader point, like zooming out, what we're doing is we're looking at a crime scene in a sense, and we're putting together this case about a crime that took tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years to play out. And we've got a pretty dang good case at this point. There's a lot of evidence, exhibits A through Z. Like we've done the work, and we're still sifting through the evidence. And so the case might change a little bit, but it's not going to change enough to include Atlantis at
It's
any
not. No,
point.
it's absolutely not. No. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And that's why I always tell people, I'm willing to update to the new stuff, but it's not going to be that this is 100% wrong.
Yeah,
It's just going to be a refinement, but it's not going to be, we know too much now for it to
yeah,
be all wrong and the
right,
Atlantis be right. And
right.
so this right here is showing our DNA, because I wanted to explain that, because our DNA comes in later. Remember,
Oh yeah, yeah.
14,000, it's in Italy. And it shows it comes from Siberia, goes down, through Kazakhstan into, the Middle East and stuff. And that's where down there at the bottom, it said the green, the dark green,
Oh, okay.
that's R1B in all the places it was. So it's basically in Israel. Remember, I was telling you, what's that mystery culture? Well, it comes from R, which comes from Siberia.
Mm-hmm.
So just try and help understand. And then that left that area and goes into Italy. And so then that's when it finally becomes European.
Mm-hmm.
So this is important, because there's some of the racists say, well, R1B brought white skin. Yeah, at 5,000.
Yeah,
Not at 14,000. No, it did
yeah,
not. Just trying to help you understand. So, because it can be confusing. Well, R1B and R1B, what's the difference? Oh, I don't know. Thousands of years different.
right.
Migrations.
Yeah,
That's what happened. Totally different migrations that have nothing to do with each other.
absolutely. And it's an interesting evolutionary phenomena. If you take two populations of the same species and you separate them, even if they don't change enough to speciate, there's
Right.
still going to be significant changes, significant differences, just because of the way DNA replication works.
Right. I agree. And so this is what that the circles tell you: Western hunter gatherers, Eastern hunter gatherers, also to help you grasp what's going on.
Our buddy Robert from Skeptic Philosophy says, "From whence cometh the whiteness? From what earthen crevice doth this corporeal sun stain cometh?"
Well,
Whiteness, Robert. We were just talking about it. It comes from genetics.
This next picture is doing it again, but more defined. That's whiteness. Everything yellow relates to whiteness, and tells you what time whiteness was in what area.
We've got R1 over here, the initial ancestor to whiteness.
Right.
Then R1B is over here, and they mix back together in Europe.
But just to explain real quick, that is mtDNA and not the male. The other picture was showing male, just so people don't get confused. The other was male. This is all female.
Yeah.
So of course they follow similar what the males were doing, but I need to clarify that this is now showing you where the female, because it's female DNA that had the first whiteness. And
this is mitochondrial female DNA. This Y DNA down here is male DNA from the male Y chromosome.
Right. And so this is just to understand, even though the numbers seem like they're almost the same, or the letters and numbers, they're not the same. This is, and they did different things sometimes. They didn't always go together, but just so people grasp what's going on. But they still went almost the same migrations, because more than likely they went together.
Right. Yeah. Well, if you want to preserve your species, you need a mate.
Yeah. So women didn't just go by themselves thousands of miles.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. The associated cultures, one by one.
Right, the associated cultures. So this is what the first one, C1 DNA that went in. This is not exactly to relating totally to that. This is like just after that. So this is, you see 47. It's just after the people show up.
Okay.
Well, because of course you don't make a culture the moment you show up.
Right. It takes a while. Yeah.
But this shows, once again, out of Africa. And if you notice too, it's also not limited to just Europe. So calling it Cromagnon, which relates to Europe, this culture is more than just Europe.
Yeah. Europe is right here. And
Europe is on the left side.
Asia and Africa.
Right. But the next picture, everything in that little, like, whatever, pinkish sort of or whatever color,
Yeah.
all of that is the same culture. So
Okay.
what they're doing is trying to say from Italy to Spain, which is, that's Cro-Magnons. Well, what about the rest of the culture? The stuff in the Balkans and the stuff in Russia or Ukraine? What about that? It's, see what I'm saying? It's using that, to me, that Cro-Magnon thing is actually trying to artificially limit Europe in a sense. But some people could say, oh, well, this is all Europe, just Eastern and Western Europe. Yeah, but generally when they talk about Cro-Magnons, they're not think of it in this thing. They really a lot of times think of Western Europe. That's why they like the Western hunter-gatherers, because they're bigots. But anyways, but even if they did, it still came from Africa. So, and through the Middle East.
So we've talked a little tangentially about this, but looking at this picture is making me think about it more concretely. We're talking about prehistory, and that's leading up to these sociological evolutions, these innovations where humans went from hunter-gatherer to agrarian to industrial and post-industrial, and we're kind of seeing the starts of that. And religion is deeply tied into that, because the more you get these larger states with a larger amount of people, the more you need a shared myth so that people who've never met each other can trust each other, do commerce with one another, trade, and improve human efficiency. So, and you can see how evolution would select for that ability. It becomes a group selection thing. Very fascinating.
Yeah,
Sorry,
to me, this culture would have already had some myths that came from Africa, which were very simple and not that many. Maybe just Milky Way beliefs and afterlife and stuff, but not a lot of beliefs. And then in this culture is about hunting is, I think, we're about anywhere from 50 to 30,000. I'm not totally sure, but by 30,000 for sure. I think they invented what's called the cosmic hunt. You can go look it up, which some people say that it's only 15,000. I think it's older. There's evidence in France, which is part of this culture.
Yeah.
And the evidence in France of them doing bear worship and stuff, starting at like 35, even collecting bear penis bones.
Yeah.
Obviously like magic wands or something.
Yeah,
anyway, But the point is that they're doing stuff. When it says humans are so much older than most can imagine.
So much cooler. And we did it all by ourselves. He's making almost exactly the point that I'm making here. So some caveman somewhere in this picture named Og walked and bashed a deer with a rock so I could run by sitting here on YouTube and ordering Taco Bell on DoorDash.
Yeah, well, these people were probably making spears, had bow and arrows, maybe, or at least maybe atlatls or some sort of thing like that. They weren't just throwing rocks. They were a little more advanced than that.
Right.
And this time too, they probably started making clothing, or if it wasn't already being made. So I mean, by sewing in a sense. So
yeah.
But anyways, go down and read the thing that it says.
Dating from 47 to 43,000 to 26,000 years ago, Aurignacian people likely had darker skin like their African ancestors, as pale skin arrived in Europe much later. Light skin was not common in Europe until about 7,000 years ago, which is the key point we're kind of trying to drive home and
yes, we are.
debunk Hancock and Corsetti and Sepher about. Is they're trying to say that white skin came in much further back, and they're doing so basically to claim that the European ancestry here is Atlantean, or what was it exactly?
Yes. Well, they think that Atlantis is the Cro-Magnons or something.
Right. Yeah,
or something like that. But so it's nonsense. There's no such thing. And this is the next culture. So that was the first culture. This is the next culture that are largely related to a new influx of C1A or C1 from which we already showed on the map, from Siberia again. On the map way above, which we were talking about.
Right.
The first one comes south, right? Comes through the Middle East, the Balkans, into France 50,000 years ago, and then a couple after that.
Yeah.
This one had broke off, remember, and went to like Siberia, and then it came back to Europe, but came back through the north. One went the southern route, which is that other culture. This is the northern route that then took over as a culture.
Bear Stiffy wands available at your local Walmart today. We can't recommend it. There's not a very humanist, ethical way to collect one. The poor bear.
Yeah. In this culture, the last culture started making figurines, made the first one at 35, and maybe
that's what
40.
This artifact here is.
And then this culture, though, made a lot of artifacts, figurines. But they got some of their ideas from the people they mixed with that were the other people.
And you know what? I love this figurine. Look how thick she is. That girl, thick. She got a badonk. She's got thighs. She's got legs.
Right. Well,
she got me about to act up.
I think this could be an exaggeration that probably relates to the moon, or maybe even the moon and the sun, like the two breasts, just like your ass, the two big, round circles, the moon and the sun, because they're big into dualism and stuff.
Right. Yes.
But the other thing is, it's also possible that maybe there was a special group member that they took care of, or would be fat.
You know what? And I notice in the text below it says they wouldn't have light skin genes, and the figurine is dark in color.
Right, but that figurine
doesn't necessarily prove anything, but there is an artistic symmetry there. Like it's circumstantial evidence, but it is still somewhat evidence, I think.
Well, that may have been made that's probably out of mammoth tusk, and mammoth tusk would have been sort of whitish, yellowish.
Yeah.
But that's 30,000 years old, or I think maybe 23.
Yeah. It could be from aging,
but still correct. You are correct that the people were black, or dark skinned.
Yeah.
So this explains the culture and the time.
The Gravettian culture had no light-skinned genes and likely had darker skin. Genetic evidence suggests that widespread light skin in Europe became prevalent much later, primarily through migrations of other groups after, not related to the Gravettian period. And we're talking about C1 there?
Right, that is C1. I was also involved because they had shot into Germany, and so they just get absorbed into the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And this one has I again, sort of like a more C1 is, I think maybe by this time, is almost gone. This is I, and maybe a little bit. I think what it is the maybe the red is R1b related more, and this other part above it in France and also a little bit of Spain, and then goes into Central Europe. That might have been more I.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, a lot of the C about this time is being taken over, or just not continuing to procreate.
That's interesting. This map looks like it's written in Portuguesa.
Well, yeah, that it's well, because I have to find different maps to show you what I'm talking about. It makes it a little bit.
No, it's good. Está bueno. Andrew Christofferson says, for a time, thickness was a sign of health and wealth. Yep. That's true, Andrew. Yep. In the time of aristocrats and the feudal states, being portly or rotund or corpulent was a sign that you were eating good, which meant you probably had wealth and money and influence with which to buy plucked geese and raspberries and all that good stuff. Wasn't very common for people to have a lot of excess fat on their bodies, because only the richest people got access to rich foods, like lots of meat and bread and good stuff. Other people were eating things like flour and radish and turnips and much less hearty meals.
And in relation to these things that were shown in these older prehistoric cultures,
Yeah.
These cultures, like I said, some of those figurines might have been heavy people,
Yeah.
and they may have intentionally like picked one person. It was probably more religious and
Right.
maybe clan based, like
Yeah.
a certain family. We pick these people, or a special person, almost like a Dalai Lama. They
Yeah.
pick a special person, sort of random, but then it's the special person. They all agree. And so I'm just saying that
So
I think there is a
there are,
cultural.
yeah, there are things like that, like gavage, you might have heard of before, is a cultural practice of purposefully fattening women to help them
Yeah.
get a husband.
Yes,
And
I have. In
then
Africa, yeah.
there's other societies where they pick specific lineages to do things like you're the shaman lineage, you're
Right.
the archer lineage, the Fletcher lineage, and that's kind of where family names themselves come from. Is you were basically named your function, and that's why names like Smith and Fletcher are so common now. It's because a Smith was a great thing to have in your town. They could make
Right.
all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Right. So you can go down, but so this is a different culture that took over Europe. So once again, the cultures keep
Mhm.
changing. They're not. They don't stay static. Calling it all Cro-Magnon when it's separate cultures doing separate things, sometimes separate DNA. Yeah, I agree. Fire keepers would have been
Yeah.
an important thing. So
Yeah.
you go and read this culture.
Magdalenian cultures, 17,000 to 12,000 years. Magdalenian people likely had dark skin, while some genetic variation existed, having genes for lighter skin that spread later. The overall complexion was darker compared to modern Northern Europeans. The genes responsible for very pale skin in later Europeans only became widespread after the arrival of farming populations from the Near East around 7,000 years ago. So these guys had some ancestral genes. Is that what this is saying? Some genes that weren't white but were ancestors to what became white?
Kind of. R1b, it comes from Siberia. They started getting lighter than super dark. So an I though would have been super dark
Okay.
in a sense. But they're spreading their genes around, and so they're starting to mix. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they would have been very dark. They're
Yeah.
not light skin.
Right. Well, I was going off of here where it says they have genes for lighter skin that spread later, but their overall complexion was darker compared to modern Northern Europeans.
Right. Yeah. But it's still trying to show that. So pretty much all what they think of as Cro-Magnon, none of them, and we went culture by culture, none of those cultures are white people.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know what I'm
All
saying?
dark skinned. Yeah.
All dark skinned. And we broke
Yeah.
it down culture by culture. We already did the DNA to begin with, but fine. We'll do culture by culture and show you wrong. And then these are the cultures that come right after that.
Okay.
So once again, then we're going to find out what their skin colors are, just to prove, to make a point. But once again, see the arrow, it's coming from now somewhere else.
Yeah. So we've got the yellow is Goyet Q2 ancestry. Red is Cytokino ancestry, EHG haplogroup. Blue is Oberkassel ancestry, WHG, Western hunter-gatherer haplogroup. And
Eastern hunter-gatherers, right? Yeah.
Yep. Green is Anatolian Neolithic farmer ancestry, and
Which
we've
is
got
Turkey.
Okay.
Just for people that don't know.
I don't see any green on this map.
Well,
There's
green's down
some, but it's tiny. It's over
in
here.
Turkey and the Middle East. See those.
Gotcha. There's a little here too, and these diagrams make it pretty much easier to follow because we're seeing basically the genetic makeup, right? This genetic makeup over here is almost completely Cytokino, Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry, right?
Which have the most, right? They have the most lighter skin, and so you see lighter skin has not showed up yet.
This helps me understand why you are so confident all of these people are wrong. This Robert
Right.
Sepher and Graham Hancock.
Right. It's not
And
guessing.
yeah, it's very compelling evidence. Any rational person of sound mind who's actually trying to make their map fit the terrain as well as possible, this should be enough.
Right. And so just so people understand too, I don't do what they do. I don't go,
Yeah.
well, I think white people did this. I go all the DNA and look at it. And because I assume I don't know.
Yeah.
I need to find out. And
And this
then when I
this
look at
makes
the
it,
data, then I go, oh, I understand what the data is saying.
yeah.
Now I feel confident. Here's what
It
the data is
it
saying.
fits your model very, very well. So much better than it fits theirs.
Oh,
Especially
totally.
especially just from like a philosophical evaluation standpoint, just because you aren't multiplying your entities and they are,
Yeah.
and they're multiplying their entity in the especially egregious and childish way of adding fucking Atlantis, Narnia to the freaking equation. Why? Why are we adding fictional
Yeah.
locations? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't fit the data at all. You're just
Right.
literally full of shit.
Yes. Okay. Western hunter gatherers were primarily IM 170. Some early individuals had R1B and others had C1A2. Western hunter gatherers with evidence at least 13,700 years old, largely replacing the Magdalenian peoples who previously dominated the region. Western hunter gatherers share a closer genetic relationship to ancient and modern peoples in the Middle East and the Caucasus Mountains than earlier European hunter gatherers. And according to DNA analysis, Western hunter gatherers were typically dark skinned, dark haired, and blue eyed. Two Western hunter gatherers, La Branya, 7,000-year-old from Spain, and Cheddarman, 10,300 years old from England, had dark or dark to black skin, whereas two others, Sven, ancient Scandinavian, and Loskborman, 8,000-year-old from Luxembourg, had dark or intermediate to dark and intermediate skin, respectively. So more and more, we're just going off, checking off the list of everything they say is Cro-Magnon, and then also checking the box that says dark skinned next to it.
Well, right, but I'm instead of just saying me just coming up and saying this so like they do, I'm showing you here's the data, here's the data, here's the data, here's the data. They're wrong, 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 wrong.
No.
That red swath, there's the white people coming.
Yep. Okay. Robert has a question. So both white skin and farm culture showed up about 7K years ago. Not that they are related, but is this right?
Yes, the farmers the farmers brought some light skin because
Yeah.
the light skin, as our other map showed, it went from to the east. We can go back up more. It's a lot more up if you want to go to the map. It's one of my drawings to understand.
Okay.
Keep going. So if we're going to talk about, he's asking a question about light skin. You got to keep going. There you go, right there.
Yeah.
So all these yellow are what light skin did. So how the Middle East or Turkey is what the farmers are in. That's the AF. That's the farmers.
Okay. Right here.
Okay? Right. And you see they go into Europe. They did bring light skin. They go in at 9,500, although 7,000 is when they really start diversifying. That's why. But where they get it is from two sources. They get it from the Cossack Mountains that got it 13,000 years ago, and they get it from Iran who got it 10,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But both of them get it from Siberia. But the ones that went to Iran was the male DNA R2 male. And then the ones that went over to 13,000 years ago to the Baltic, almost in but the big circle before it does that, that's Eastern hunter-gatherers. So it gets to Eastern hunter-gatherers with R1A male and R1 female. And R1 females where the DNA comes from. But that's R1A, and then R2 is going down to Iran. And so branch of that shot into the Cossack Mountains 13,000 years ago. And so The people from the Middle East get it from that, we call it, Caucasians. You're talking about this right here because they have light skin 13,000 years ago. And they did go into the Middle East. But that's not the Middle East has two versions. They have the one from the Cossack Mountains, and they have the one from Iran. Together, that makes what they brought into Europe.
Right.
The farmers.
Around 7 to 13,000 years ago. And it was kind of
but you're talking about 13,000 years ago only in the Baltic, near Finland, not anywhere else in Europe.
Yeah,
and
Europe,
the earliest Europe got it was like 9,000. That's the earliest, but basically that went to the Balkans.
Yeah. We're starting off with one group over here in the east by Lake Baikal.
That's correct.
And then there's like 3 main groups we're looking at that all kind of took different routes to get to the same region. One is going straight west. Another's going kind of northwest near the end. And the other one's going southwest first. And then they start going northwest.
That's
and
correct.
End up in the
Just so you understand.
So hopefully that answers Robert's question.
Right. So farmers get it from more than one version. But that's just how. Doesn't melanin depend on climate? Well, melanin changed because Siberians were in a climate that doesn't have the sun. And so that required them to evolve in a sense, or have an evolutionary thing happen where they needed to have more light skin because of the climate. But that happened there, and then everybody else gets it because of what happened.
Climate is one of the selection pressures that can affect the pigmentation in phenotypes.
Right.
For us,
and so but then they spread it.
Vitamin D.
Right. But then they spread it, and then it started to be human selection, not evolution. But the pressure then was, I want these people that are lighter. And so you pick lighter spouses, and you have lighter children, and they pick lighter spouses, whatever. But the red is where white is starting to come in. For sure, these people have light skin. Now, maybe not 100% of every one of them, but they are where, in the sense, the group of the light skin is coming. So, once started wearing clothes, it's not a big deal. Well,
clothes help. They are an extra layer of protection from the elements. But it's more ultimately genetic, and sexual selection does play a role as well.
Yep. So if you see, though, all this blue, none of those in Europe, all that blue, none of those are white people.
Right, yeah.
I'm just helping people understand. And then the ones that are orange, you said you called it yellow, but the ones in Spain mainly, those are also not, those are all. So everyone's dark in a sense in most of Europe.
Yeah. Except this group over here.
Except the red. Pretty soon the red goes over. If you see, too, it's hard to see, but in Sweden at 9,000 and 9,400, they already got some red.
Yeah.
So they already are getting the earliest, in a sense, light skin.
Yeah.
And maybe down here in the Balkans where it says 10,000, they had look like they have a little tiny bit also.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Little tiny bit.
Eastern hunter-gatherers were predominantly R1, R1A, and R1B, but also I2 in some and Q in a few. The Eastern hunter-gatherer genetic profile is primarily derived from ancient North Eurasian ancestry, introduced from Siberia, with a secondary, more minor admixture of European Western hunter-gatherers. The Eastern hunter-gatherer evidence is at least 12,700 years old, and is suggested to have included mostly brown eyes, some blue eyes, and high frequencies of the light skin variants. During the Mesolithic, the EHGs inhabited an area stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Urals and downwards to the Pontic-Caspian steppe.
Right. And so that's the first time, white people.
Yeah.
Or the chance to even call anybody that.
Right. Pseudo-history questions challenged established narratives by proposing alternative theories, often based on selective evidence, speculations, and sometimes political agendas. Examples include the Shakespeare authorship question, the existence of an advanced antediluvian civilization, like in Graham Hancock's theories, and the ancient alien theory, which claims extraterrestrial contact influenced ancient wonders like the pyramids. Other examples question established facts, like whether the Titanic was truly advertised as unsinkable, or if Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake." Pseudo-history topics, authorship and identity. The Shakespeare authorship question is a prominent example, proposing that the works attributed to William Shakespeare were written by someone else. I've heard that one before, certainly. Advanced civilizations, I've heard this one before. There's often like a UFO slant to it. Theories suggest a highly advanced lost civilization existed before known history, responsible for monuments and technologies. Basically, if white people couldn't do it, it had to be aliens.
Or also the other version of that is white people actually taught everyone everything, and that's the advanced culture. All the brown people couldn't possibly have done it themselves.
Right. Including the fingerprints of the gods is a popular example of this. Ancient astronauts. This theory proposes that extraterrestrial beings visited ancient Earth and influenced human civilization, pointing to certain artifacts as test as evidence. I encounter this sometimes with evolution denial. People will say, "Oh, I'm an intelligent designer. I don't have to appeal to a god. It could be some ancient alien species," which still concedes evolution because that ancient alien species had to evolve from something. But anyways, misconceptions and myths. Many facts are actually myths, such as the idea that Nero fiddled while Rome burned, or that Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake." Yeah, so this is another one, and basically the strategy there is pedantry. They're taking something that is not true in a form in which is commonly believed, but there is some level of truth behind it, and they're acting like this means that things that are established facts can be doubted.
Exactly. Science doesn't have to be trusted. Here's why.
Yeah. Historical revisionism. This can be a form of pseudo-history where established narratives are challenged through selective use of evidence, often for political or social reasons. Can you say Civil War history revisionism, where they try to say that it wasn't over slavery, it was over states' rights, mostly states' rights to one thing in particular.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely for slavery.
Yeah. It was a dream. Didn't you see the Sandman series? Shakespeare made a deal with the Sandman. That's where it came from. I never watched the TV series, but I loved the Sandman comics. The graphic novels were great.
And then another one currently would be like January 6th.
Yeah.
Saying that was just peaceful, protest.
Right. It was just a tour through the Capitol where they took a shit on Nancy Pelosi's desk. That's a normal thing to do on a tour. I don't know what you're freaking out about.
Right. Someone took a computer or something too. Yeah. That's just normal. Yeah. People do that. If you leave it out, I'll just take it.
Right. Some pseudo-history involves claims that official historians are part of a conspiracy to suppress the truth. And this is a great one. I like this one because I'll just ask, at what point do they ingratiate and inculcate new initiates into the cult? Is it when you get your bachelor's? Is it at the beginning or the end of graduate school when they're handing you your master's or your PhD? They go, "Congratulations, by the way, you're a shill for us now. You always have to," like they never actually think the conspiracy theory through, like how it would actually work. How to identify pseudo history? Focus on speculation. Oh man, right? Graham Hancock with straight up admitting, well, there is no evidence, but he still talks anyways. He's admitting he's speculating. Pseudo history.
Speaking of speculating, to me, there's not just one kind of speculating. There's reasoned speculations and unreasonable speculations. Reasoned speculations should follow logical jumps. Like, if there's the DNA saying that there's no way that any of these people were dark skinned, it's a reasonable speculation to say they're probably not light skinned.
Yeah. Just
It's not a reasonable speculation.
Capital. They bought pretzels from the gift store.
Yeah. And it's not a reasonable speculation for Robert Sepher to say, oh, I think the Cro-Magnons, all of them from 40,000 or 50,000 all the way to 10,000 were all white people. Like,
yeah.
No, that's an unreasonable speculation.
Right. Yes. Despite them all lacking the genes for whiteness. Yeah.
See, now you get what I'm saying. Exactly. It literally is like, yeah, buddy, no.
Sure. Ignores contradictory evidence, frequently ignores or dismisses historical evidence that doesn't fit the proposed narrative. We were talking about this a little bit before we came on stage here. This is like the thing. I think it is this. It is definitely the case for like creationist evolution deniers. They have a presupposed conclusion that it's literally impossible for there to be evidence in God's world that contradicts what they have faith is the one true version of God's word. So when you show them evidence that from God's world that looks like it contradicts God's word, they assume there must be something wrong with it. It's fake, or it's being interpreted wrong. Everybody's lying, or they're brainwashed, or they're satanistic God haters. They do all kinds of mind reading and cognitive distorting. And so basically what ends up happening is they have a map, and they assume the map is perfect and it's therefore becomes impossible for data from the terrain to correct the map. If data from the terrain looks like it contradicts the map, they have to discard or interpret the data somehow. And that is an inferior epistemology to discarding or reinterpreting your faith. Like, if you discard or reinterpret your faith, you say something like, well, Genesis isn't literal. It isn't 24-hour days. Those right. They're God days, so they're much longer days. Or they say, well, Genesis isn't a record of history or a science textbook. It's a poem from God to humanity. And that is a slightly superior epistemology, because then at least the data from the terrain can correct the map a little bit. But right. The other approach is to reinterpret or discard the evidence to say something like, well, that rock isn't millions of years old. They're lying. They're overconfident. They say it's millions of years old because of radiometric dating, and radiometric dating is wrong. You have to reject or reinterpret the evidence somehow. And
or even people, they'll say that about people. They'll say, well, that DNA scientist is too confident.
Yes.
Science has been wrong. So
they assume something like that, other than assuming that it's possible that the people that are arguing with them are actually data driven and are looking at a much bigger body of facts with a vastly superior epistemological method for evaluating, analyzing, and interpreting those facts.
Right. And speaking of that, just like about 3 days ago, a theist told me, because someone had given me a compliment and said that, wow, I really know all this stuff. And they asked me that I posted my response. They asked me, did I learn it in college, or did I learn it by myself? And I said, well, I did go to college, but really almost all this stuff I know is my own self, thing. And then he's like, oh, Damien, you're just, really hot on yourself. You think you're better than all these other people that came before. Look, I know why I think I'm better is the data. Not me personally, but the data. The data is better. You got better data. You proved my stuff wrong and showed me better data.
To be clear, I think not only is the data better, I think the method is better too. But
right. But I'm just making a comment that
if you can show me my filter is broken, I'll want it fixed.
Absolutely,
I want it fixed so that I can get the map closer to the real terrain.
Right, and that's why you see I've worked really hard to understand it at a granular level.
Yeah,
so I can make sure that I'm as right as I can make it.
I'm so glad you said that, because one of the strengths of the presuppositional, sealed off, unquestionable worldview approaches is that it is unquestionable. It's unfalsifiable. You literally can't beat it. But
Right.
one of the weaknesses is anything beyond local scale becomes completely unintelligible to you. Anything granular or cosmic, it's just beyond you. You got no chance. And I have experienced this over and over again with people who they become so confused by anything beyond local scale. It's mind-blowing. Well, I was just watching a debate last night where one of them was confused by chainsaws. Like, chainsaws are too granular for you. Like, oh my goodness, brother, you got to make better use of curiosity, rationality, logic, and just a little dose of skepticism.
Definitely, and also I think it's interesting because a lot of times, especially the pseudoarchaeology or pseudo history, because that's what because of what I do, I end up having to deal with them the most, more than someone else. So, and I also deal with the archaeologists and the anthropologists and historians on a more granular level than most people, do. What does this say?
He wants to know if Conan the Barbarian was set to be 10K years ago. Could he have looked like a white Austrian with that long flowing hair?
No,
I don't think so, unfortunately. Although
unless he came from the Baltic.
Great movie. Love Conan the Barbarian. I think one of my favorite parts is, if not the favorite part, is when they're having, like some feast or celebration or something, and one of the guys at the feast asks Conan, "What is good?" And Conan steps up and he says, "To see your enemies crushed before you, to see them driven from your lands, and to hear the lamentations of them."
But speaking of the hair color, you asked about blonde hair.
Yeah,
blonde hair was in the Balkan, the Baltic, excuse me.
Yeah.
It came with the white skin sort of alleles, not like they're the same ones, but they came as more as a group package. Sometime also between 13,000 and 11,000. Certainly by 11,000, there's a large amount of people in that area that have blonde hair.
Yeah,
or the genes that relate to blonde hair. Whatever.
I was born blonde, and then my hair darkened throughout my life. And the same happened to my daughter. She's still pretty blonde, but her hair is starting to get darker.
Well, I'm referring to people that stay blonde like their whole life.
Uses selected facts. We were just talking about this. Authors may present a few facts in a misleading way to support their agenda while ignoring evidence that contradicts it. Oh my gosh, this is evolution deniers to a T. It's exactly what they do. They tell you mutations are always bad. A mutation causes deformities and cancer, and then they leave out the fact that most mutations are actually neutral, and some have a positive fitness value, meaning they are good. They improve survival and
that is true.
Differential reproductive success. And so, and it does tie to the filter and the broken map. By having only part of the data, it's easier to justify an incorrect worldview. That's why creationists have so many fake experts out there spewing nonsense. They want to make sure people only know what they want them to know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I find it interesting too. Like, some people will ask me, well, how do I know? Then I say all the stuff I do. Now, that's too hard. Yeah, I'm not reading all that. I'm like, well, then you don't really want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like how if you talk to a creationist evolution denier about the fossil record, they'll say all kinds of things. They'll say the fossil record shows stasis. There's no transitional forms. There's lots and lots of missing links, but they'll never actually just like post a picture of data from the fossil record. I have dozens of those pictures saved on my laptop. And when I show them to creationist evolution deniers, it's like they've never seen them before in their life. And I'll ask them questions, what is this? How old is it? How does it relate to the other fossils? They'll say, I don't know, doesn't matter, they're skulls. And it's because of that circular worldview, that idea that evidence can't contradict God's world. So they don't need to know what these skulls are. They don't need to know how they relate to each other. They don't need to know how old they are. They just know God's word is true. So they don't have to worry about the details.
Yeah, well, I think
then that's
ridiculous.
also how you get them making the same arguments over and over again. You know, they'll sleep it off and then they'll come back and you'll have to reprove it to them again. You'll have to just make the same arguments again. They'll make the same arguments and you'll have to do the same refutation you did previously. It's very fascinating. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, that's fine.
Appeals to emotion. Pseudo history can be compelling because it often presents an exciting hidden narrative that goes against the accepted story. This is a big part of it. Conspiracy theories help people feel like they are main characters in some cosmic battle between good and evil. And the forces of evil in this worldview are so freaking powerful. They've taken over every university, every hospital, every government, even governments that are competing with each other are in cahoots on this. America and Russia are both lying to the public about evolution being true. It's like, oh my God, how do you have this convoluted of a worldview, but can't accept a worldview with even the slightest complication of evidence and experts? It's the levels of lopsided skepticism and credulity. It's like skepticism and credulity are tools, and you need to make intelligent use of them. You need to use them in a balanced manner, and they don't use them in a balanced manner at all. Their skepticism.
I feel like a lot of times they're not really even they're fake skeptics.
Yes,
they're actually denialists.
Yeah, critical thinking LARPers. Yeah. Contradicts expert consensus. It often stands in opposition to the consensus of established experts in the field. And yes, and that's where they'll start pivoting to, oh, you're invoking your college professor with a PhD as a source, and that woke college professor doesn't even know what a woman is. And it's like, oh my gosh. Then the political motivations for it becomes clear often. When the other pseudo academic arguments have been beaten down, they'll go for the political stuff. They'll go mask off and they'll just start spewing anti-trans hatred. Usually the trans people are the popular scapegoat to beat up on right now.
Yes, they're wrong to do that, but yeah.
Okay, questions about popular pseudo-historical theories. Was an advanced civilization responsible for building the pyramids and other ancient monuments? This question relates to theories from proponents like Graham Hancock, which speculate about lost civilizations, a view widely rejected by mainstream archaeologists and historians. And the reason why is quite obvious. You know, it doesn't take an advanced civilization to make a simple machine, a pulley or an inclined plane or a lever, and to use these tools cleverly. That's they're not only impugning the physical capabilities of these ancient humans, they're imputing their ingenuity, their creativity, their ability to solve problems and accomplish architectural feats. It's pretty embarrassing.
I agree. I always hate when they go, oh, they couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Like, you literally don't know how any building is built, and yet you're confident that you understand ancient, technology and building. Like, get the fuck out of here.
It reminds me of a joke from the immortal Mike Kaplan. He made a joke once where he wondered if in ancient Greek science sci-fi horror stories were things like beware the inclined plane, beware the pulley and the lever. It's the rise of the simple machines. Did the ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle not exist, with their works being fabricated later? Okay, this one's fascinating because isn't freaking Atlantis a story written by Plato?
Yes, it is.
These are like the space isn't real types among the flat earthers. They're like, oh, this was a story written by Plato. Plato wasn't real. It's like when your conspiracy theory fails, just make it dumber. Just make it more stupid and more crazy.
Speaking of that, sometimes that for us can be an effective way to show them how stupid they sound.
Yes.
In other words,
Yeah.
like you could do this. You make it worse. In other words, like someone says, "Well, you know, Damien, I don't believe in the moon landing," and you could look at them and go, "You believe in the moon?"
Right. Just one up, they're stupid. Because trying to say smart things to them doesn't help.
Well, I think also you could show that then let them defend that there's a moon.
Right.
And then show them, see, that's actually how the other stuff should work too.
Yeah. Did Chinese Admiral Zhang He's fleet discover America in 1421 before Columbus? I don't know anything about this one.
Well, the answer is no, but
no. The claims popularized in books like 1421 is a prominent example of a pseudo-historical theory that goes against established historical evidence of the Viking settlement of Vinland and the later voyages of Columbus. Oh, and then this one, obviously, I know. Is the Holocaust a hoax or a fabrication? So there's actually more than one Holocaust. There's not just the Holocaust of Jews in Germany. There's the Armenian genocide. There's a genocide currently going on in Palestine and Israel.
True. And also Native Americans experienced more than one genocide.
As well. And
so,
you know
but,
what?
Yeah, but this generally, of course, is talking about
There's groups of people that lie about every one of these genocides and say that they didn't happen, which is really ironic because they're also often the groups that believe one group of humans is superior to all the other ones, which is the driving ideology behind how these things happen.
Right. That is true.
Yeah. Questions exploring. Yeah, no, I've always found it hilarious that there's people like who are pedantic skeptics about the Holocaust of Jews in Germany, and they're literally posting comments on like Facebook or other social media apps right next to people who are raving anti-Semites. It's like, I can't see how this could have happened or have been real. And it's like, just look at the person who posted a comment below you. That's how those people are. That's how they do.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. Okay, so questions exploring gaps in evidence or conspiracy theories. These questions often stem from a premise that established history is a lie or that powerful groups are suppressing the truth. What facts we learn in history books never actually happened, and is recorded history a lie? Historians engage in continuous revision of history based on new evidence, but the core evidence are well established through rigorous methods. Yeah, like you might find out that George Washington had an advisor who influenced his behavior during the Civil War or the American War for Independence. But the American War for Independence still happened.
Exactly.
George Washington still fought in it. He was still a key figure. Like, we find new information, but yeah, there's certain things it's reasonable to assume you're not going to we're not going to find out that the American Revolution didn't happen.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. And that's why it's wrong when people are like, oh, this upends everything we know. No, it does not.
Right.
It adds to what we do know in a richer way. I mean, it doesn't, no.
Were certain historical figures only viewed poorly because of deliberate propaganda put out by their peers? While propaganda has always been a factor in history, pseudo-history takes this further by suggesting an overarching conspiracy to suppress the truth. Conspiracy thinking is one of their favorite. It just makes life easier for them. They don't have to think. Anything that contradicts a worldview is a lie perpetrated by the conspiracy, basically. It's a very lazy way of thinking, but it's efficient for the conspiracy believer, and it's egocentric. It lets them feel smarter than actual experts without having to do any studying.
Right.
Is Afrocentrism a form of pseudo-history, and does it blackwash history? This is but I have heard them make this complaint, and it's absurd. To identify pseudo-history, historians look for several red flags, including a lack of extensive citations, an agenda-driven narrative, and claims that historians are lying or keeping the truth from the public. Trustworthy historical information relies on primary sources, peer review, and a rigorous standard of evidence. Sounds right to me. Pseudoarchaeology questions on history can include topics like the origins of major monuments, the existence of lost civilizations, Atlantis or a single global ancient super civilization, and claims of extraterrestrial involvement in ancient achievements. These questions are often based on speculative interpretations of myths and artifacts rather than established scientific evidence and archaeological methods. Questions about ancient civilizations and monuments, global super civilization, were the pyramids, Stonehenge, and Easter Islands all built by a single advanced ancient civilization that existed 15 to 10,000 BCE? No,
And Graham
obviously not.
Hancock would say he thinks so.
Yeah.
Jimmy Corsetti also believes that.
Yeah. Atlantis, what evidence exists for the existence of the mythical continent of Atlantis, and how did the idea of it become so popular?
Well, one of the ways is racism, as we've already talked about. Racism promotes, because then you can say, our Europeans are from Atlantis and not from Africa, which is just nonsense and racism.
Yeah. Lost continents. Are there alternative explanation for ancient sites and monuments beyond the theories of lost continents like Lemuria? Technological advancement. In ancient civilizations possessed technology far more advanced than today's, as claimed in some pseudoarchaeological works like Uriel's machine. That's a common one. Like, I've seen that one. I think some people are literally getting that from a Disney movie. Questions about evidence and methodology. Myth versus reality. How should myths and legends be interpreted in a historical context, as literal accounts or as cultural and symbolic stories? Obviously, cultural and symbolic stories.
Right.
What types of evidence do pseudo-archaeologists use to support their claims, and how does it differ from the evidence used by academic archaeologists? Well, for one, the academic archaeologists actually have evidence. That's one of the biggest.
not just wild speculations.
Right.
Atlantis may be true, thus white people.
Well, and in like statistics, and I know you aren't that big of a math guy, but this is one of the cool things about statistics. In statistics, you do assume the truth of a test hypothesis, but then what you do is, instead of testing the test hypothesis, you test a null hypothesis, and you either reject it or fail to reject it. And it mirrors the scientific method, which says nothing can be proven beyond any questioning. So proving something isn't a good epistemological standard. A better epistemological standard is to fail to disprove something that is eminently falsifiable. And that is the metric. That is the method we use in science. We fail to falsify something that is falsifiable, and that demonstrates that the model we're working with is at least close enough to the terrain to produce positive results. And we never assume that we've perfectly mapped the terrain, so we don't say it's proven. We say it's provisional. But yeah.
Well, and I told you in my philosophy thinking, there's two types of certainty. There's psychological certainty, which is how you feel. And then there's epistemic certainty, which is like you said about evidence. Yeah. And so that's why I'm confident, because of knowing the data of the DNA and the migrations and the cultures that relate and the colors of the skin, because I've done all this research on that. That's where I get the confidence, is I'm epistemically confident. But as I told you before, in philosophy, that's the main one that is valued, not your feelings.
Yeah, and we build up from epistemic to psychological. We go from bottom to top instead of top down, and from psychological to epistemic. Like when I look at the evidence of deep time and evolutionary science, something like a rock that has millions of years worth of, radiometric decay in it, we're epistemically confident that that rock exists at that level of radiometric decay.
I agree.
It is from that we draw the, theory of an ancient planet. So I get what you're saying. I agree with it mostly.
Well, I was just saying I'm not a scientist. I think as a philosopher, as a rationalist, and so I was just explaining how I come at it, and it is kind of like the way, in a sense, a science would, and also science became science from a branch of philosophy trying to really know the truth of the world.
Yeah, naturalism, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Questions about the spread of these ideas. Modern appeal. Why do pseudo-archaeological, Freudian slip right there, huh? Like pseudo-archaeological claims often thrive on television and infotainment documentaries. I think that's part of the purpose, is to sell books, is to sell DVDs, is to sell subscriptions to websites, and it makes them money.
Right. Which is funny because I've had someone before say, Damien, you just go against this to make money. I literally give everything away for free. That literally cannot possibly be my reason.
Right. 100%. I do the same thing. Ideology. How can certain pseudo-archaeological ideas been used to propagate specific ideologies such as white supremacy? Well, we've covered that at length.
Yeah.
Influence. What influences have caused people to enthusiastically embrace ideas like ancient alien contact? So we talked about that a little bit too. I think it's grandiosity and, self-elation, like just making yourself more important, making yourself a main character in a battle between good and evil, making yourself this agent that's so brilliant that you saw through all this deception that's being perpetrated by these extremely powerful figures and conglomerations, but for some reason always leave clues behind for dingbats like you to find on the internet. Like,
really? Well, also, I think you also addressed it, which I agree, is intelligent design. They can say, okay, it's not God, it's aliens.
Yeah.
So they need the possibility, at least, of aliens. Thus, intelligent design is a reasonable thing, even though it is not.
I think we already covered most of this, but this part here, how to approach these questions. Compare with scientific consensus. Compare pseudo-archaeological claims with findings of professional archaeologists and historians who use established methods of excavation, analysis, and interpretation. Yes, that an actual method, for God's sakes.
Yeah, really.
Like, I have a method. I don't think it's the best method in the world. It is nothing more and nothing less than just a good basic academic method. And that method is curiosity, rationality, logic, skepticism, and then ontology, epistemology, axiology, and then scientific methods, and then the presumption of fallibility, and lastly, humanism and harmony. And it's a good freaking method. It covers the evidence. It covers a way to unpack and evaluate the evidence. And it's not heartless and without soul and without joy, because humanism and harmony is the whole reason I'm doing it. So I think it's a good method. I think it's a better method. Get a method. Question the evidence.
All these are ways to in a sense, address or attack the pseudo stuff.
Right.
This is, like you said, is a good stuff to know.
Yes. And basically, it's like we were talking about with Tony Reed earlier, about how your reaction to things like this should be something like, I'm sure you're brilliant, but that sounds wrong. And then look it up yourself. And through having that kind of method, you and me have basically both become polymaths. We've learned a lot about anthropology, psychology, sociology, biology. You've learned a lot about culture and linguistics, and I've learned a lot about meteorology and volcanology. And yeah, it's a good way to broaden your horizons for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Analyze the source, look for fallacies. This is the logic part of my method, is the use of informal logic, looking for fallacies. And then biased interpretation. So this is a big one. Probably the most common bias people commit is overconfidence. And that is partly because everybody thinks they're good at critical thinking. I don't meet a lot of people who would say, I'm terrible at critical thinking. I have no fucking idea what's going on. Like, most people think, and in general, humans have a very high opinion of themselves, unjustifiable.
Right. Well, people need to have epistemic humility, but also the problem, my wife has a phrase, she goes, people think they're born knowing.
Yeah. So we can, that's the end of the Word document. We'll take that off. And so as we've been talking about this subject, we're kind of seeing how the Atlantis conspiracy theories tie into evolution denial conspiracy theories. And it all kind of ties into each other. And I think that is because they are using the conspiracist method, and it underlies all of those beliefs.
Right. It helps, or you could say it the other way, it helps support all those beliefs.
Yeah.
You can support any belief you want, just have a conspiracy.
Yeah. 100%. I think we covered everything we wanted to cover today, Damien. Is there any final thoughts you want to put on the end of this video?
Well, I would just tell people that in general, I have three processes about belief, and I consider it a good belief etiquette. And that's what we should have, I feel, because things are going to happen. So my first thing is we should try to have, in a sense, reason belief acquisitions. In other words, that things that we try to get or learn, we should desire that they have to fit some reasonable category. To filter out things that are not reasonable. But we're not reasonable. To me, we're emotional beings that sometimes use reason. We're not reason beings that sometimes go to the amusement park of emotions. No. So it is totally wrong. Like you were talking about before, we need to have humility that we're going to be wrong. We're probably already wrong. I've been wrong my whole life, in a sense, and had to keep updating and being less wrong. In fact, there was a philosophy website that used to be around called Less Wrong. So because that's a humility we need to have. So that's where, to me, we have good belief maintenance, that we don't allow us to be static, and fixed in a belief. We need to be able to challenge it, be open to change it. And make it more rich, like I've done. I started with understanding a little bit and then filling in all the gaps. I now understand a lot more, but I'm still ready to readapt to the new science, So I'm not fixed. I'm confident, super high confidence in some parts, other parts not as confident. But even in the ones I'm super confident, if you can literally show that I was wrong and this is the one that's right, guess what? I want to be what's right. I want to be less wrong. And so that's where, to me, then the last part of three things, the last part is we have to have honest belief relinquishment. We need to be honest with ourselves and not ego, that anything that's shown as wrong in error needs to either be updated or removed. Yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about in our next video we do together. We're going to do a deep dive on philosophy and epistemology. I'm probably going to talk a little bit about the philosophy of evolution, and I'm really looking forward to it. And this was very fun. It's always great having you, Damien. I look forward to the next one.
Thank you. I appreciate coming on.
Yeah, I hope everybody watching enjoyed this, and definitely go over to Damien's channel and subscribe to it if you aren't already. And if you're watching this not live, you're watching the replay, thanks for coming by and watching, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you again, everybody, and we're going to end it with that. Y'all have a great night.